Hello and welcome back everybody to the Foodbuild factory, where today we're going to take a look at the heavy scribe. That's the girl in power armor you can see on screen right now. And as always, I'm going to show you some gameplay in the first part of the video, and in the second part of the video we're going to take a look at the perks, the mutations, the equipment and everything else. Now let's get right into it. So as you can already see, this character is going to be a gunslinger in power armor, a combination that for a good reason you probably never seen so far. Now, why aren't gunslingers in power armor a big thing in this game? It's quite simple. Usually what you want to have on a gunslinger is a VETS-based character, because for most guns in this game, handguns I'm talking about, revolvers and so on, they are kind of lackluster compared to other classes like commando or heavy gunners. And to make up for that, people usually utilize VETS quite heavily. It's the same I've done for pretty much every gunslinger so far, but, well, why doesn't that really work with power armor? The simple reason is that using VETS in power armor drains fusion cores quite heavily, because if you're using AP, you do use up your fusion cores, and that means on a power armor commando character or so on, you're really gonna drain your fusion cores very fast. Now this arguably doesn't have to be a super big problem, because a lot of endgame players are probably swimming in fusion cores. That shouldn't be a real problem, however, people still don't really like it. Now, I did in the past show off some heavy gunners or power armor characters that do use VETS a lot. There are some tricks you can utilize, and to be honest, my first approach to this character was using VETS quite heavily. However, what I found was that the build turned out very similar to another build that I already done, and therefore I wanted to use the chance of using power armor and already be kind of a bit more tanky than a lot of gunslingers, in order to show off this here playstyle, a gunslinger that doesn't use VETS for once. Now, how we are doing this is by using the Gauss pistol that you can see I'm using here. And the Gauss pistol is an interesting weapon. Now, it was added with the Wastelanders DLC, and when the first information was revealed about this weapon, it looked very promising. Now, what made it so promising is, first and foremost, it has very high base damage, or very high damage compared to other pistols, in addition to a pretty good mag capacity. And arguably the most interesting thing about the weapon was that it was suppressible, which isn't the case for a whole lot of guns in this game. There's not a lot of guns you can suppress. Talking about handguns, by the way. I always say guns, but yeah, I'm specifically talking about pistols and revolvers. And yeah, the problem is, once the weapon was revealed and people could actually get it, yeah, it was kind of disappointing for a few reasons. Now, the first reason is, and that's probably the most important reason, it was severely bugged with VETS, meaning that, yeah, you just couldn't reliably use VETS with this weapon. There were some workarounds, meaning you wanted to charge the weapon before you shoot it, and before you enter VETS and so on, but this was always kind of fiddly and just made it very bothersome to use the weapon. And yeah, pretty quickly people weren't interested in the weapon. Not a whole lot of gunslingers around to begin with, so the sample size of people playing around with this pistol was relatively low, I guess, and it has some additional problems. Now, one problem you already seen is, yeah, the weapon has to be charged, just like the Gauss rifle itself, and, well, that's always kind of a bothersome experience. You probably noticed, if you're using something like the bow, it's pretty much the same. It's just a bit tedious, and it really makes your DPS suffer, because yeah, you just can't really shoot fast. I mean, you can shoot the weapon relatively fast, however, if you're doing an uncharged attack, you're doing basically no damage. Now, this is another thing that was a bit different when the weapon came out. At that point, the damage was, I'd say, like half the damage if you're not charging the weapon, and that meant if you were going against bosses, for example, you were probably better off just spam firing this weapon, doing half damage with each individual shot, but overall having better DPS. Now, this was kind of changed somewhere at some point, and now, yeah, uncharged shots do nothing basically. It's, yeah, you really want to charge your weapon, but I still think it's relatively enjoyable to use regardless. The only thing is you can easily get a sore index finger from charging all the time, but yeah, that's about it. Now let's see where the Scorch Piece is, and we're trying to do something here. Just go for the wings, but we want to wait till we get a good shot in. Okay, I think we only had one hit there, but yeah. Let's see when it gets back into our range. In the meantime, we can work a little bit on our adrenaline. And by the way, what you saw there was I was not charging the weapon. That's because at the moment I wasn't really looking to do a whole lot of damage, but rather to cripple one of its limbs. We do have the Modern Renegade perk. It's a perk you very rarely see Gunslingers utilize because there's just so much better options when it comes to perks in the agility tree. But on this occasion we could definitely live with using it. And as you can see, as long as the Scorch Piece is in the air, there's no big point in trying to deal damage. We're just trying to make this motherfucker land, but for some reason, I'm really unlucky when it comes to Modern Renegade at the moment. And please, could you land? I'm going to use some Psychotats, by the way. It looks like the Scorch Beast wants to land, but doesn't really find a good place to do so. That's a reason why oftentimes I do skip these Scorch Beast fights, because they can be quite bothersome. Okay, one of the wings is crippled. Let's try to go for the other one. This whole situation, by the way, is probably the only reason we do have concentrated fire. We only have rank 1 because, as I said, we're just using it for this here situation. But as you can see, once the Scorch Beast is on the ground, and provided I would hit it, we actually deal some moderate damage. It's not too bad. Going for headshots, we can finish the job relatively easily here. You do need some ammo, but it's not too bad after all. And now it should be down, just in case there's some ultrasight protocols, but no, there weren't. So as you can see, Scorch Beast killing probably not the best idea with this weapon, not the most fun experience, but for farming and roaming around, this is actually pretty nice. Now another thing you notice is that maybe the gun sounds a whole lot different to what you are used to when you see videos about it, because pretty much always when the weapon is used, people utilize it with stealth. That's another big thing about the Gauss weapon that makes it one of the better pistols still, in my opinion. The simple reason that it can be suppressed and therefore can be used in stealth, meaning that you can avoid combat, open combat. So that's something on weapons that have a charge time and that don't have the biggest DPS. That's quite an important feature. If you can just use VATS and therefore use stealth and therefore stay out of trouble, it helps a lot. Now on this occasion I didn't want to do that because obviously, as you can see here, we are using power armor, and I still thought that the Gauss pistol was one of the best weapons to use in power armor. Now, from the obvious fact that it is the only pistol that doesn't look completely ridiculous in power armor. What I mean by this is it's relatively big, and it still seems like the proportions seem to match pretty well, so you can actually think this weapon would be usable in the power armor. And another reason is the high ammo capacity, that's really something that makes this weapon work relatively well for such combat situations. Now you do need 2 to 3 shots to take down most enemies, that's just a given, but it doesn't really matter because you are relatively tanky. We do have low HP, but power armor on in and of itself makes the whole situation worthwhile, in my opinion. So you can definitely get away with this playstyle. Now, one thing I didn't really do is I do have a, as I said, relatively low HP, and therefore we do need stimpaks every now and then. But you could definitely just make a tankier version of this character, that shouldn't be a problem. So not bringing down enemies too quickly isn't really all that big of a problem, since we can survive the blasts we get in the meantime. Using 2 to 3 shots on an enemy therefore doesn't really matter. The ammo isn't really common or anything, but if you're using it for a semi-automatic weapon like this one here, it's relatively easy to get by. Now another thing that's good about the Gauss pistol is you can boost its damage not only by using Gunslinger perks, but also it has an inbuilt explosive effect. Now it's something that the Gauss weapons have, which I found really cool, and I would wish that they bring back explosive energy weapons in this regard, meaning that plasma and laser weapons can drop with the explosive effect, but make it like it works on Gauss weapons. Would make for cool visuals, in my opinion. But yeah, we're gonna see. I guess this topic will never really be addressed. And one thing I like to do, especially with ghouls, is just use my pain train perk to stagger them, damage them a little bit, make them more squishy. We do have tenderizer, so that works well in that regard. And once they line up in this here situation, you can just shoot them like this. If far-flung fireworks procs, as it just did, it can do a good amount of damage, since we're having relatively high base damage with this weapon. And yeah, just like that, we cleared the place out. It really is a nice combination for once to use pain train and then shoot them with a pistol. Playing this build feels very interesting. It's just a combination that you're not used to, or you basically never see. And even though it's not the most powerful build, I still really had a whole lot of fun using this build. Was definitely a nice experience, and I do just like the aesthetics of the weapon a whole lot. I love to use it. I wish it was a bit more, I'm not sure how to say it, like, it's a bit inconsistent. That's something that doesn't really matter all that much when you're using it like we do. It's definitely still a bit bugged in VATS. That's my main problem. It just seems to miss shots it shouldn't miss, and yeah, it's generally just relatively tedious to use in VATS. So for once, using this not as a VATS weapon is a nice addition. Now you will see once I'm showing off the equipment that it's even a bit more odd that we're not using VATS, because this weapon here is anti-armor with better VATS crits. So that's basically the reason too why I wanted to use it as a VATS build to begin with. But quickly realized that it was relatively enjoyable to just not do that, go for headshots more and more. So that's another thing to mention about the build. Obviously, if your Twitch skills are better and you are better at consistently doing headshots, yeah, your DPS definitely is way better. So as you can see here, with headshots you can 1 or 2 shot most super mutants. And on this occasion, far-flung fireworks didn't do a whole lot of damage, but let's see, maybe we can finish him off with pain train, which didn't really work here. So yeah, using another follow-up shot. Let's use this a little bit in third person, shall we? So the theme about this character here is basically that you are a Brotherhood Scribe. The thing is, I wanted to use this Vertigo power armor that you got from last scoreboard, and sadly it is a Brotherhood of Steel line. So you kind of have to think that you are a Brotherhood character. I used the Captain Cosmos helmet, I think it is. It looks a bit goofy, but I like the big round helmet. It looks less combat orientated, but more like a convenient power armor for more like a spacesuit or something to just explore. The combination makes this character, in my opinion, look less combat orientated, but yeah, just more science focused, which I quite like. You also see that due to Paint Train, the way we're sprinting, the animation is changed, which I quite enjoy. Some people don't really like it because it makes your screen shake, which I can understand, but I always thought it makes you feel more like the tank you should be. Now this guy here could be problematic, so we're trying to take him out relatively quickly. Yeah, if he had an energy weapon that would have been another story, but with the ballistic weapon, yeah, the fast firing enemies, they can be a bit of a pain. Also goes for the level 100 super mutants with the minigun. And I gotta say, there's something to not using VATS. It's something I'm really used to. As you know, most of my builds are VATS centered. Simply because, yeah, VATS is pretty good in this game. It just opens you up to crits, which are a completely new way of dealing additional damage that you just have no access to outside of VATS. So basically, you're always missing out if you're not using VATS. But interestingly enough, on the some of the changes that are planned for legendary effects could make this a bit different. I really like that they buff the aiming down sights legendary effect, the Hitman's effect, so that you get 25% extra damage rather than 10%, which feels like, I mean, 25% is not a whole lot, but it's definitely noticeable, which you can't really say about the 10% we currently have. And as you can see, that was a relative breeze, even though we needed some shots. Fall damage, obviously no problem in power armor. And keep a look at our fusion core. Yeah, the drainage is very much not a problem. Okay, I really thought that would have been a headshot and therefore the guy would go down, but sadly it wasn't really a headshot. Now there's one perk we could utilize that we don't. I'm gonna say that right away. It's crack shot. Because yeah, crack shot, if you're aimed down sight with a pistol, you get more range and accuracy. I thought about using it, but I thought that 3 points of perk investment was relatively much for it. Since, yeah, on long range I don't really like the weapon now. Keep in mind I do use the standard iron sights because I just visually prefer them. With the reflex sight you can aim a little bit better, but I found that I rarely fought anything outside of range, and the accuracy wasn't a problem at all. It's very reliable in my opinion, my experience. Now this front yard here is, yeah, this is a bit of a challenge because you can easily get overwhelmed. Now when it comes to melee enemies, we do have the reactive plates modification for our torso. The medic pump would have been a good idea as well in my opinion, but I went for the reactive plates just so we can punish melee enemies that are hitting us. Felt kind of interesting and also was quite fitting for situations where we are not really good at, meaning crowd control. So if you're swarmed by a whole lot of ghouls, the ones you're focusing on you can kill quite easily, and in the meantime enemies that are surrounding you will slowly damage themselves, which works out relatively well. They don't do a whole lot of damage, but over time it really stacks up. Okay, this super mutant decided to just stand there, not do anything, but well, we take it. Okay, and I think that was pretty much the whole place. So, just in case we... yeah, it seems like we have forgotten someone here. Oh, there's a mutant hound, but I think I just heard a super mutant as well. So, we're gonna see. Okay, with a headshot they go down relatively easily. And where's that last super mutant that I just heard, or have I imagined something? No, there's definitely another one. Okay, now I see him on the compass. But where is he? How did I miss this guy here? Well, doesn't matter. Okay, so this was my heavy scribe so far. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay. Now, obviously, I still wouldn't say that power armor gunslingers are generally a good build or anything. You're probably still better off utilizing VATS and be a bit more agile. But on the other side, I found it very enjoyable, and one thing you can say for sure is you're basically going to be a very unique character roaming the wasteland. You'll not see a whole lot of different gunslingers in power armor. I think the aesthetic works quite well. Also, I do have the aligned barrel just because it gives it a bit of a different look rather than the suppressor, even though there's not a whole lot of change to it. And yeah, let's take a look at our perks. And first we start with our mutations here. We do have Bird Bones, Chameleon, Eagle Eyes, Egghead, Herbivore, Marsupial, Speed Demon and Unstable Isotope. Now, Bird Bones and Eagle Eyes on this occasion aren't really necessary, so you could definitely live without them. Agility is always a bit nice if you want to sprint or something, but there's nothing we really use our agility for on this occasion, so you could definitely live without Bird Bones. And same goes for Eagle Eyes. We're not utilizing that, so extra perception and crit damage are kind of lost on this character, but I didn't want to bother to remove them because on this character mostly I'm using VATS, and this is a strength debuff. Doesn't really affect us all that much. The only thing it does is it lowers our carry weight, so therefore I didn't really remove them. Same goes for Chameleon. It just doesn't have a negative effect and a positive effect either on this occasion, so it's just there. You really only need Egghead here. Then Herbivore, yet again, not really necessary. Marsupial and Speed Demon, those are pretty important. You want to have Marsupial for the simple reason that you can jump a bit more, and Speed Demon, yeah, the reload on this weapon is very slow, so a bit more reload speed doesn't hurt, and movement speed also never hurts. Now, what you could do on this occasion, just to get a bit more tanky, would be Scaly Skin and Grounded. Now, Grounded shouldn't affect your weapon all that much, simply because even though it is an energy weapon, it actually shoots ballistic ammo, so, or not ballistic ammo, the ammo isn't ballistic, but the damage is ballistic, so the Grounded effect wouldn't negatively affect you, and Scaly Skin just lets you have a bit less AP, which, as I said, we're not really utilizing, so yeah, you could be a bit more tanky. However, in power armor that shouldn't make a whole lot of difference. So that's pretty much everything we can say about the mutations here. And then let's get on to our equipment. So here you can see it, that's the weapon we were utilizing, an anti-armor VATS crit Gauss pistol. Now, as I touched on in the video, the VATS crits don't do anything to us since we're not using them. Anti-armor is a very nice effect for pistols in my opinion. There are other versions you can use though. Two-shot would work relatively well. Now, two-shot really gives you a big debuff on your accuracy, but I have used a two-shot Gauss weapon in the past, and I found it relatively reliable still. It's something you have to find out for yourself. And then you have the obvious contenders, Bloody, Junkies, you know the thrill. There are some interesting perks that are going to come up in the future. The perfect Gauss pistol, in my opinion, on this situation would be probably an anti-armor, 10 damage while aiming, and faster reload one. That would be something that in the future works relatively well, I guess. But for now, the anti-armor effect was pretty much all we utilized here. Quad I don't really find necessary because, yeah, the ammo capacity isn't really a thing here. Isn't really a problem here. We do have a quite good ammo capacity as is, and I rather want to have a bit of a boost to my damage, rather passively through anti-armor or actively through junkies or so on. And yeah, not a whole lot to say here. Hardened receiver, obviously most damage. Aligned short barrel, there's sadly no long barrel, so we had to live with that. Gives us a bit more hipfire accuracy, would help if we want to use VATS to reduce our AP cost, but we don't do that. And also it looks kind of nice, makes this wired coils in the front of the weapon, look cool. Standard sights, as I said, use reflex sight if you want to. I just found the standard sights to be more pleasing in my opinion. And then we have a drum magazine for bigger ammo capacity, as well as the special issue paint, which just makes the weapon a bit more grey, which I like. And in terms of armor, it's pretty straightforward. We have a complete set of T-51B armor here, with only the torso being modified with reactive plates. So do whatever you like here. For the helmet, you could go for the sensor arrays, which target high living enemies. That would be pretty cool. Would work relatively well, makes it easier for you to see the enemies. And in terms of the arms, there's basically nothing there that would be useful in my opinion. And as for the legs, well, calibrated shocks for extra carry capacity wouldn't hurt. And yeah, as you saw, relatively easy when it comes to the whole equipment. And now let's get into the perks. So we do have strength at 6. We do have traveling pharmacy and pain train. Now traveling pharmacy completely optional if you don't want to carry a whole lot of chems around. You just don't have a need for it, so go for something else if you like, or just don't use it at all. And pain train, well, you saw it during the video. It's not a game changer or anything. It's not like you can really do a whole lot of damage, but it's surprisingly powerful, especially in scenarios where we are not so well equipped. Meaning if we get swarmed by a lot of enemies, which is where our charging time on the weapon can really be bothersome. And I found that pain train was a bit of a relief there. Fighting ghouls, especially in the golf club or something, it's just fun to sprint through them, damage them, and yeah, the damage isn't even all that low, so I would not want to play this build without pain train. That's all I'm saying. It just feels nice, but yeah, personal preference. In terms of perception, arguably a bit high since we're not using VATS. I still wanted to have a few things though. Now the necessary one here is Tank Killer for extra armor penetration on top of our anti-armor effect. So that's just more damage and the stagger chance. We're gonna take that. Concentrated fire at rank 1, I said it earlier, we do have Modern Renegade, which I'm going to show off in a few seconds. And basically we have a chance to cripple an enemy's limb just by hitting it. The damage doesn't really matter. And therefore one rank of concentrated fire I found useful to just target their limbs, spam them a little bit, not in order to do damage but just to cripple them. So yeah, that's why concentrated fire is here. And Glow Sight and Exterminator are basically two perks I've just grown to love on Gunslingers, because even though they seem very situational, they actually come up relatively often. Now Glow Sight arguably isn't really necessary because for some reason the glowing enemies aren't the most well, are rarely the most important ones, but especially glowing ghouls, for example, they can be relatively tanky, and having 60% extra damage to them, I'm gonna take that every day. And Exterminator, it doesn't improve your damage exactly, but the armor penetration of an insect. That means on top that with our anti-armor effect on the weapon and Tank Killer, even though those don't really multiply with each other, still at the end, if you're fighting a Mylar Queen or something, you're basically not fighting any resistances. You can really target basically their health directly. There's something like, I didn't really try to calculate it, but yeah, I guess you have something like 25% armor left on those enemies, so definitely useful. Onto endurance, relatively low. We are only having 3 endurance with rank 3 of fireproof to protect ourselves from explosions, which also come from our own weapon, meaning that if we were fighting enemies in melee range, we could damage ourselves quite significantly, and with fireproof on, that's just not the case. Then we go on to charisma. We do have Lone Wanderer here, nothing out of the ordinary, have it relatively often. More armor, more damage mitigation, 20% less damage, that's just good. And the AP refresh, not really necessary on this occasion, but yeah, the 20% less damage definitely makes this perk worthwhile in my opinion. And then you can see I only have rank 1 of Tenderizer, but I did make room for more, so as you can see here, plan was to use 3 ranks of Tenderizer rather than only rank 1, but I figured that leveling up 2 more levels wasn't really necessary. You could imagine how it goes, basically just a bit more follow-up damage, but yeah. Even though this is a quite powerful weapon and oftentimes we do kill enemies in one shot, especially ghouls and so on, yeah, on enemies like especially the super mutants, you usually use 2 to 3 shots, and with Tenderizer the chance to kill them in 2 shots is just definitely higher than to use 3 shots. That's why it's there. So keep in mind you would want to have maxed out Tenderizer rather than rank 1 here. But yeah, that's it. And now we can see we do have 15 intelligence, something I don't have very often. Now batteries included, pretty straightforward. We're using energy ammo, so yeah, batteries included is there. Also helps with our fusion cores, pretty straightforward. Then we do have rank 5 of Gunsmith, even if condition works well and isn't bugged like it is at the moment. The Gauss pistol, also a Gauss rifle I think, it's pretty much the same. They do lose condition relatively fast, so I found Gunsmith to be a quite good idea here. And I wanted to have high intelligence just to have an easier time leveling up, which definitely worked. So yeah, Gunsmith is here. And then we have rank 4 of Demolition Expert and rank 3 of First Aid. Now you can experiment a little bit here. Obviously if you want to max out your damage, go for rank 5 of Demolitions Expert, and rank 2 of First Aid should be more than enough. Would probably be the thing that I would have done, but would have meant a whole lot of more level ups for me just to switch that around, simply because yeah, I had First Aid at rank 3 and just had to use basically 4 level ups for Demo Expert. If I wanted to have Demo Expert at rank 5 and First Aid at rank 2, that would have meant 5 level ups and 2 level ups to, yeah. So rather than 4 level ups, I would have used 7 level ups. Ooh, is that level up a whole lot here. Anyways, yeah, that's the combination I went for. You're not missing out on a whole lot by only using rank 4 of Demo Expert. It really doesn't matter all that much. Running completely without Demo Expert I wouldn't recommend, but it's nothing that you really have to overthink here. Rank 4, rank 5, yeah, it's not that important either. So rank 4 is more than enough for our needs. Keep in mind this also means that we can easily use grenades if you like to use them. Or what you could do is just carry a auto grenade launcher. If you have one with reduced weight, would work very well against enemies like the Scorch Beast. That basically, yeah, it makes for a good backup weapon if you are feeling like the Gauss pistol doesn't do the job quite well. And now we come to our most important stat arguably, which is agility. We do have all the Gunslinger perks maxed out for biggest amount of damage. And then we do have Modern Renegade, which means we have better hipfire accuracy and 12% chance to cripple a limb. Now the hipfire accuracy is really nice. The weapon is relatively precise from if you're firing it from the hip, from the get-go, but 45% extra hipfire accuracy makes it really worthwhile. And the chance to cripple a limb means also a chance to stagger, since if an enemy gets crippled, it gets staggered for a moment. So overall, I would have wished that Modern Renegade was in another place so that we can use it more often on Gunslingers. As I said, very often you just don't find the place to use it in agility because there's better options, quite simply. So it's quite fun to use it for once. And keep in mind though, you can definitely use something else here if you want. I found it quite nice though. And lastly, we do have rank 3 of Adrenaline. Pretty straightforward. More damage going on if you're fighting, so I think you saw that when we were at Westtech just now. At the beginning we regularly took 3 shots to kill enemies, but as the fight moved on we quite sufficiently were able to kill them in 2 shots, which definitely makes a difference. And then we have luck here, which is especially low for a for a Gunslinger. I think I never shown off a Gunslinger with luck under 14 or something. It just doesn't happen. As I said, most of the time you want to use vets for a Gunslinger, and on this occasion, well, we just have rank 5. Rank 2 for starch jeans. Quite simple, we want to keep our mutations, don't get new ones, standard old thing. And then we have Bloody Mess just for a little bit more damage. Arguably not worth it, it doesn't do a whole lot, but yeah, I felt like there was nothing else I really needed here, so I went for Bloody Mess for once. And now we get to our legendary perks. As you can see here, we do have legendary agility, endurance, and luck. So these just help me to get a little bit more perk points. If you don't have access to legendary perks, well, you could live without them, basically draw pretty much every single point from either strength or perception, since there are some perks that aren't really necessary to us. And the more interesting ones here are Funky Dots, only at rank 1, so it doesn't do a whole lot, but I still think it makes a difference. We're wearing a matching set of power armor, even though we have different skins and so on, but it's all T51B, so we get the effect from that, bit more poison resistance. After all, the problem is we have relatively low HP, and poison, as far as I know, doesn't care for armor penetration or so on, so even if you are in power armor, poison resistance can kill you poison can kill you quite fast, and having some poison resistance definitely helps. Electric absorption, only at rank 1. You probably know how good electric absorption is once you're getting into higher levels, so just keep that in mind. For example, a fight against a Soltron would have been way easier. I used 2 or 3 Stimpaks there, just spammed them a little bit. But yeah, with rank 2 or 3 of electric absorption, that wouldn't have been any problem whatsoever. It also would have helped me a lot here in the fight with the super mutants, because every now and then there are some with laser weaponry, which helps. And then far-flung fireworks, you saw it proc in the video sometimes. It helped especially good against the ghouls at the Freddy Fear's House of Horror, I think it's called. Yeah, I actually, for some reason, I thought that on this build here, far-flung fireworks felt more impactful than it usually does. So keep that in mind. I quite enjoyed it. And well, that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not quite sure yet which of these pictures I want to use as a thumbnail. I do like the pink one, but it's a bit goofy, so we're probably going with this one here. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I know it's a power armor gunslinger. The chance that anyone wanna recreate it is relatively low. Now, noticeable mentions are weapons that I find work quite well with it as well. I had a little bit of fun using a gamma gun on this character. You also use energy ammo, so yeah, it's covered by batteries included, and yeah, you can use a charging one for once, gives you a little bit extra damage, and works quite well in my opinion, makes for a good fun. And the Assaultron had surprisingly fun. If you saw my video of the Adam Worshipper, yeah, pretty similar outcome here, just you're not as tanky as the Adam Worshipper. But yeah, you can obviously go for whatever you like here. I just found the Ghost Pistol to be pretty fitting. And anyways, guys, that was it. See you next time. Bye.